When we look at universal knowledge or accessing universal knowledge from the human level, basically, we think, as I said before, that some people can do it and some people can't. From the spiritual level, we know that we can all access it. From sources level, and that's what's most important, because that's why we can access universal knowledge equally, uniformly, and at will. From sources perspective, there's just one mind working. So each of us is just part of one mind. And in the same way that when you're in a human body and you can combine something you learned from cooking class and something you learned from chemistry class and come up with a new way to remove stains from garments, Source can combine something that Joe Bag of Donuts knows and something that Nanci knows and come up with a new thought or a creative thought. So when we're accessing universal knowledge, all that's really happening is thoughts are combining or connecting or becoming aware of each other within one mind. So if you can keep that in mind, you'll have a better chance of convincing yourself that you can access all of universal knowledge. Because when you look at it just from the human perspective and you've only got the five senses, you're never going to get there. And the first thing that you have to do in order to access universal knowledge is believe that you have the ability to do it. And your body will fight you on that. Your body has been trained to believe that reality is just what it sees, hears, smells, touches. What's the fifth one? Tastes, yes. That's reality to an animal. In addition to that, bone deep sense of what really does and doesn't exist in terms of information, we as a society have convinced ourselves, or at least lectured ourselves extensively, on the idea that if science can't reproduce it, it's not real. If science can't measure it, it's not real. If everybody in a room can't see it all at the same time, it's not real. So we have this in-the-box, narrow viewpoint of what constitutes reality. And because of that, that limits what we think we can access in terms of information. Because the human body has its only what I get through my senses is real, and our intellectual, spiritual self inside the human body has this idea that if I'm the only one that sees it or gets it, it must be an hallucination or an illusion. When you combine those two things, what you come up with is the thought that you're limited, that you're a discrete individual entity unto yourself, and what you can't see or feel or taste or touch isn't there. And you convince yourself of that. And I know there are people out there who say they're psychics and know better, but you also know that that's the way we all think, and we have to overcome that inertia, that being convinced feeling. In addition to that, we have to overcome the human tendency to filter out information that doesn't directly impact on survivability. Human animals, like all animals, have a tremendous capacity to take in data that, by and large, we as intelligent beings ignore. You put a human in an environment, and it can tell if it's safe or not. It can sense danger. It can smell things that tell us whether or not something is healthy to eat or not. It can feel the presence of beings in the dark. I mean, there's a lot of sensory data there that humans get that we ignore all the time. We also grew up as little children still connected a lot more to our spiritual abilities. And so we had invisible friends, and we got information from the afterlife. I mean, how many of you in here have had a little kid tell you, oh, grandma, you know, who died 3 years ago says this, or, you know, they've got a story of some type. A little, a friend of mine, Liam, when he was 3 years old, you know, he remembered being a race car driver. And he said, Daddy, you know, I wrecked in this car, you know, went spinning off a racetrack and landed in water and I drowned. And the next thing I know, I'm here. And he said, like, how did I get here? You know, little kids remember stuff like that. But their parents train them to ignore it. Because you go around telling people that, you know, you've been reincarnated, you know, they're not going to like that very much, and the kids are going to make fun of you, and you can't go around saying you got an invisible friend. You know, the teachers will come down on you for that. So we train it out of ourselves. We train it out of our children. So there's a lot there that we have to overcome before we can get on to accessing universal knowledge.